Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari. Jai Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari. Yashoda Nandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yashoda Nandana Vraja Janaranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari. Yashoda Nandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yashoda Nandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gaur Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskritam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet. Before reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer his obeisances to Lord Narayan, to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, and to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttamashloke bhaktir bhavati naishtuki. My regular attendance in Srimad Bhagavatam class and rendering service to the pure devotee. All that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and devotional service is established in one's heart as an irrevocable fact. Hare Krishna, good morning. Today we are continuing our study of the fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter number 16, entitled Praise of King Prthu by the Professional Reciters. Today we'll be studying text number 11, which is shown right next to me here. Please repeat. Durshado Durvishaha Asanopi Viduravat Naivavi Bhavitam Shakyo Vinarani Utito Nalaha Durashado Durvishaha Ashanopi Viduravat Naivavi Bhavitum Shakyo Vinarani Utito Nalaha Durashado Durvishaha Asanopi Viduravat Naivavi Bhavitum Shakyo Vinarani Udhito Nalaha. Please chant.
Durasada Durvisaha Asanopi Viduravat Naivavi Bhavitum Sakyo Vinarani Utito Nalaha
Durashado Durvishaha Asanopi Viduravat Naivavi Bhavitam Shakyo Vinarani Utito Nalaha. Durashado Durvishaha Asanopi Viduravat Naivavi Bhavitam Shakyo Vinarani Utito Nalaha. Durashado Durvishaha Ashanopi Viduravat Naivavi Bhavitam Shakyo Vinarani Utito Nalaha. Durashada, unapproachable. Durvishaha, unbearable. Asanaha, being approached. Api, although. Viduravat, as if far away. as if far away. Na, never. Eva, certainly. Abhibhavitam, to be overcome. Sakya, able. Vena, King Vena. Arani, the wood that produces fire. Utitaha, being born of. Anala, fire. Translation. King Prthu was born of the dead body of King Vena, as fire is produced from Arani wood. Thus King Prthu will always remain just like fire, and his enemies will not be able to approach him. Indeed, he will be unbearable to his enemies, for although staying very near him, they will never be able to approach him, but will have to remain as if far away. No one will be able to overcome the strength of King Prthu. Purport by ISKCON founder Acharya, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Arani wood is a kind of fuel used to ignite fire by friction. At the time of performing sacrifices, one can ignite a fire from Arani wood. Although born of his dead father, King Prthu would still remain just like fire. Just as fire is not easily approached, King Prthu would be unapproachable by his enemies, even though they would appear to be very near him. Om Agyanata Barandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Hare Krishna. So, before I begin, I want to first offer my respectful obeisances to all my seniors, my god aunties and god uncles that are in the room, my instructors that are here, my fellow students who are an extremely intelligent bunch of people that are very impressive. It's a great fortune to be in all of your association over these last couple of weeks. It was actually quite embarrassing for me to sit here in front of you. When they asked me to speak, and I thought they got it wrong. I thought they must have gotten somebody else, mixed up. And I'd asked Rupanuga Prabhu, and he said, no, it's for your purification. So, anyway, I would like to begin in this purport here, and actually in the verse. We see that Prthu Maharaj is such a great personality, and it says that he was born from a dead body, from King Vena. So how is this? We came into this, we didn't actually go back to take a look at the birth of Prthu Maharaj, but here it comes up, because we started on text 6 last Thursday. And when you look at the history of it, it sheds some perspective on who this great personality is. So, Prthu Maharaj's father, and he didn't really know his father because his father was dead, was King Vena. And King Vena has an interesting story because his father was King Anga. And King Anga was a great respected king. All the citizens liked him. He ruled very peacefully. But he had a son. And when he had a son, he became very, very joyful that he had this son who was going to be the heir, somebody who's going to pass the kingdom on to. It gave him a lot of happiness and peace. But only one problem. King Vena was not the son you would want. I mean, extremely bad behavior. Was very, did a lot of horrible things, and he took advantage of this entitlement that was kind of given to him under being royalty. And despite ways of trying to discipline him, correct him, there was nothing that the king could do. And one night he was reflecting that, why couldn't I have just had a good son? And he had this realization that actually a bad son may actually be better than a good son, because if I had a good son, I'd become very attached. But this actually allows me to practice some level of detachment. And with that, he headed off to the forest and left his whole kingdom behind. When they woke up in the morning, everybody was wondering, where's the king? And a search party went out. All the citizens, were looking for the beloved king, but he was too far gone. The sages and his Brahminical council did what they could to try to locate him, but he had conviction that he was done with this particular form of life and everything that he was striving for, to pass his royalty on to an heir. It just wasn't going to work out, and he had that moment of understanding that this world was nothing to get entangled with. So, but that left a problem, it left a dilemma. And that dilemma was, who now is going to rule the kingdom? The citizens approached the sages. What do we do? Because they could understand that none of us were ready to rule, none of us were ready to lead. And without proper guidance, without protection, we'd be in the hands of thieves and robbers and people that would just like to create havoc upon society. So the sages, they understood that this King Vena really wasn't qualified. He didn't have the qualities, he didn't have the behavior, he didn't have the training to be a leader. But they really had no other option. So he ascended the throne under these conditions. And sure enough, King Vena did disappoint. As soon as he went to the throne, he started abusing his power. Now, it's said that he had quite a lot of powers. It said that he actually mastered all the 8 mystic cities, that he didn't use them for self-realization. He used them to manipulate people within his kingdom. And very soon after that, he went on a major power trip, and he ended all religious sacrifices in his kingdom. He began torturing people. He began finding every way he possibly could to let people know that he was the position that was providing for everybody. Exactly the qualities that we're learning not to be as servant leaders. So the sages that appointed him realized, we made a mistake, and we knew that this may happen. So what do we do? And this is kind of a good leadership lesson that we can take from, because they put him in prematurely. And we should understand that when we have to make decisions, sometimes the best options just aren't available, but yet you have to do something. And we should be very careful to empower people that aren't necessarily right for it. Now they realized that, we made a mistake. They approached the king, and thinking that, okay, maybe you could reason with the king. Let's try to come back a little bit. Let's try to get back to center. Let's, please open up these sacrifices, because these sacrifices, they've started preaching to the king. This is what actually makes society work. This is what, will allow prosperity to reign, in civilization. But the king had the opposite reaction. He said, you guys are so envious of me. You want me to hand over my power? In fact, all these sacrifices that, you plan to do to the demigods and to your Lord Vishnu, they should actually be directed towards me. After all, who's providing for you? And he called them, he compared them to unchaste wives who are being happily provided for by their husband, but they decide to go after some imaginary lover in the middle of the night. In fact, in Russia, under Stalin, they used to use this technique a little bit because they were very oppressive to religion, and they wanted to understand that actually the state was, the end-all be-all, that there really was no God, and you shouldn't rely on God, you should rely on the state. So they would have the children who were in the schools that were, Christian, they were religious, they would pray every day before their meals, and they would do something to them, and they would say, come here, ask your God for candy, and they would say, and the kids wouldn't want to do it, but the teachers were forcing them to ask your God for candy, ask him. Finally, they would have to say, okay, Jesus, please give me, please give me some candy. And they would look and say, where's the candy? It's not coming. And then they would take another group of students that were very loyal and faithful to the state, and they would say, now ask Stalin for candy. And they would say, Stalin, please give me candy. And then there would be like a panel on the ceiling that would open up, and all this candy would fall down. And all the kids would run and say, thank you, Stalin, thank you, Stalin. So the kings, they develop. So that was they came this idea. There's a pie in the sky when you die. So it's like the pie is here. The pie has been given to you by the prime minister, by the president, by the dictator. Don't believe that some God is going to give you this great pie. So, but when the limit of your religion is salvation, that's what you become vulnerable to. So King Vena had the same approach. He's basically, I'm providing everything for you. It's not these gods that are providing for you. It's not the supreme person that's providing for you. It's me. So right away, the sages knew we had to do something. So they plotted an assassination attempt on him. And they said, we have to correct our mistake. And the assassination attempt that they had was actually it said that they chanted high-pitched words. And that killed him. And just the power of mantras. They gave him a chance. They didn't need to use any weapons. They just used high-pitched mantras. And boom, King Vena was gone. So just when you think you're the supreme controller, just one mantra can, take your life there. So he was done, but his mother was very attached to him. So his mother said, I need to preserve this body because I'm not ready to depart my son. Even though his soul isn't there, he's lifeless. She preserved his body with different types of oils and chemicals and by certain mantras as well. It's an art that Sukracharya is also known for imparting to his disciples, is this art of preserving bodies and trying to bring dead bodies back to life. And but then the sages, they were faced with another dilemma. So they came together and they were associating, now who's going to be the king? Who do we appoint as king? And off in the distance, they saw this big dust cloud coming toward them. There's this wave of dust. And when they inquired, what is this dust? One of the ministers came forth and said that this dust is actually all of the unrest that is being created within in the kingdom from rogues and thieves, just running amok, loiting, different homes and different businesses, and people are being taken advantage of. Anarchy is about to take place. So they realized that this King Vena, even though he was a demon, he was an asura, he actually had good DNA. He was from the dynasty of Dhruva Maharaj. And so actually there may be some good that can come from him. So they use this process of churning the limbs. It's quite amazing when you think about it, but they had this science, mastered, where they could actually extract from churning the limbs of the body to be able to, from a dead body, to be able to produce, another being. So at first they churned the thighs of King Vena, and from it became a dwarf-like being. And they realized right away that this isn't going to be the king that's going to be called upon. So then they churned the arms, and from the arms came, one arm came Prthu Maharaj, the other arm came Archie, and that was to be his future wife, Prthu Maharaj's future wife. And right away, the demigods came down to greet Prthu Maharaj. And you can see the difference here between Prthu Maharaj and his father, King Vena. And they were kind of diametrically opposed in behavior and the way they were being viewed. And the demigods came down, they offered, Lord Shiva offered, a shield and a sword, and different weapons were given, a helmet by Lord Indra. Agni came and gave, special, powers, different necklaces, and Lord Brahma and Saraswati came down, and Prthu Maharaj was just so grateful and just so taken back by the kindness of the demigods coming to give him these benedictions, as opposed to his father, who denied the existence of the demigods and wanted all sacrifices and all respect to stop. He started being praised. And upon being praised, he actually said, I'm deserving of none of this. In fact, I haven't done anything yet. You're saying I'm going to become this great person, I have all these tremendous qualities, but I haven't done anything yet. Please wait until I actually do something before you actually give me this praise. So again, you can see the difference between him and his father. His father, he was ready to kill people if they didn't praise him. And Prthu Maharaj was feeling so undeserving of any type of recognition, even though he had all the qualities of a saintly being, of a saintly king. So, this is the story of Prthu Maharaj. And some of these qualities we learned about. His Grace Bala Govinda Maharaj Bala Govinda Prabhu, he spoke about how different characteristics of Prthu Maharaj were picked up by different demigods. And some of these qualities I wanted to go over, just to reinforce, because these are also qualities that, as we're being taught about leadership, that we have to reflect upon when we're put into a position to take care of individuals. One of those qualities was that of the sun, and the sun's quality of being equally merciful to everybody. No matter who you are when you walk outside, the sun is equally distributing its rays upon everybody who goes out there. Resource management. So Prthu Maharaj, he was described as the sun that evaporates water. And then in a time of need, rains come down. So he's able to understand expertly, when to extract and when to give. He was also compared to the earth, that is very forgiving and forgetful of the offenses that are made against him. So Mother Earth, is trampled upon, is exploited. So a leader also has to be prepared that you may not always get respect, you may not always get cooperation, you may have people that are always giving you problems. But you have to be tolerant, you have to be forgetful, you have to be forgiving. This is the calling. We have to rise above our lower natures in order to inherit these, in order to practice these qualities that were present within Prthu Maharaj. It said just by seeing Prthu Maharaj, his glance, your heart became peaceful. He had that calming effect upon people that he interacted with. And then also we found out that he had a sense of confidentiality. He knew what information to give and what information not to give. And we talked about this a little bit, and we had some reflections from Radhika Raman Prabhu about it as well, saying like a leader doesn't necessarily need to flaunt his knowledge, doesn't need to flaunt his wealth, it doesn't need to flaunt his power. These things automatically come out. They're secure with them and what they have. But another characteristic of it is that we have to know information to give and what not to give, because human nature a lot of times degrades when you're given the wrong information. So there's a tendency, a curiosity for everybody to know what's going on, when they really don't need to know what's going on. And as a means of protection, it's good for a leader to actually know that actually if this information is out there, it's only going to create disturbance. So we live in a time when they use this word transparency. We have to have transparency. I remember at our temple one time we were going through this exercise of what are the main qualities that we want to have in our temple, and what do we want to be? We want to be Prabhupada Nugas, we want to be Prabhupada Center, unity and diversity. And there's a transparency, it has to be transparent, everything has to be transparent. And somebody came up and said, actually, not everything has to be transparent. If everything is running good, because there's people that it's not their service to actually get involved in certain details. And if they're exposed to certain details, they may not be mature enough. They may not be have the right frame of mind, that their consciousness may actually get polluted. Their curiosity may actually lead to degradation. So Prthu Maharaj had this ability to understand that, okay, not everything necessarily has to be distributed to all, as far as an understanding of what's going on, within the leadership. We can see that, so we have, programs like CNN and Fox News and MSNBC that go on all day long about information that is leaked and people becoming disturbed and what's going to happen. And it just goes on, cycle after cycle after cycle after cycle. And what does it do for human society? It just creates distraction, it just creates disturbance, something to talk about. But it doesn't really help a person toward the purpose of life. In fact, it takes one away from that purpose. And then finally we see here in today's text is this principle of potential. This principle that even through a bad situation, something good can happen. So even through King Venu, the sages were able to see that due to the lineage of Dhruva Maharaj, we may still be able to extract some good, from this demoniac individual. And as leaders, we also have to be able to do that. The situations may not always be ideal for us. We have to deal with some pretty difficult characters. But we have to be able to see the potential in the situation. And we have to be able to extract the good and leave behind, that which is not so positive. I'm looking at the time, and I have a note here that says, "Dear speaker, please end class around 8:45," and it is 8:52.
Now that our Austin cut out 15 minutes of the class, it should, the Devadar Austin should start earlier and then it end at 8, so the class can have its proper, respectful time.
Thank you. But so I'm not sure what to do here, but so I think it would be appropriate to get some feedback, some comments, some questions.
If you have some further conclusion, you should bring to your conclusion and then.
So the only thing I was going to say along this point of potential is that we need to be able to remain detached, and we need to be able to see things from a big picture. And as leaders, we have to take on these three qualities of being able to see potential, which is being able to forecast. It hasn't necessarily arrived. A farmer looks out into a field, and he hasn't yet sowed the seed into the ground, but yet he's able to understand that there's going to be a harvest someday. We have to be able to see the potential in different individuals. We have to be able to see potential within different opportunities, different events. We have to be able to see potential in different projects. And it's very easy to give up on people because they may not come in with the right talents or even the right behavior, the right attitude. But when we look upon the mercy that's been given to us, the people being able to give us a chance and being able to see the potential in us, the fact that we were assembled here and asked to come to this GBC College means somebody saw a potential in us. If you're anything like me, I was amazed. I was saying, "What do you mean, me?" When Jai Krishna Prabhu called me and said, "I'm going to recommend you." Me? What do you mean, me? But somebody saw the potential in me. We see how Srila Prabhupada saw the potential in so many situations in coming to America, and his disciples. They weren't, initially they weren't, the most impressive bunch. They were young, they were, a lot of them were hippies. They, came from, backgrounds. But they had some faith in Srila Prabhupada. They had interest in Srila Prabhupada. Saw the potential, and he fanned that spark. And then we also have to have this characteristic of empathy. And I'm going to tie this back to the sages who recommended that King Vena go to the throne. Because it's easy to second guess their decision, sitting here now. How could you put this person you knew was unqualified into a position and created so much havoc? But you have to see things now through their eyes. And what empathy does is it allows you to see things through the eyes of other individuals. And it's key to see the potential in other people. Because people come into, especially when they come into Krishna consciousness, they're coming with so much from their previous, life before coming to Krishna consciousness. Habits that they've developed, cultural capital. That they've invested so much in their religion of birth, in their family life, in their education, in the culture that they grew up in. And a lot of times they see things in a different way. And looking at these sages, they made decisions. They made decisions based upon what they could do at the time. And a lot of times we only see things through our eyes. But when we try to see things through the eyes of other people, especially through the eyes of leaders, and when we look at it and say, what were they thinking when they made this decision? Let me put myself in their shoes and try to understand what they may have thought. And then we may not be so judgmental toward people. And we may actually be a little bit more understanding, a little bit more compassionate. And that's also a quality that we're called upon to do in leadership. So with that, I will stop because we're running close to 9 o'clock. And I'll ask for any comments or thoughts. Prabhu?
Really wonderful, insightful class. Just a quick reflection, I just wanted to say that it was a very insightful and practical class and something that Dr. Maharaj is very expert at doing. One of your final points you made there was that we should see the potential in other people. And I know, I was also amazed that I got recommended to come here too.
Can you put the mic near your mouth?
Hare Krishna. Is that better? Sorry. So when you say that you're a president and you have people who are devotees who are serving with you, sometimes you're correcting them a lot because they might be making a lot of mistakes, and it's hard to see potential when you have to correct them a lot, and then the tendency is to become a little frustrated. So maybe you can give us some pointers or some insight on your experience and being able to fan that spark, even though you may just, after a while, just see so many things they're doing wrong, you find you have to correct them as well.
Malati Prabhu, would you like to answer that?
I couldn't hear.
Oh, you couldn't.
Sorry, but I'm not really deaf.
Oh, okay.
So I was asking you to speak in the mic.
Okay.
I can sum it up real quick.
All right.
Okay.
I mean, what I got from you, you were wondering about how to distinguish the potential. Is that correct or not?
Like if you're serving with devotees who might be, you're having to correct them a lot, you're finding the fault in them a lot, sometimes you start to become a little frustrated. But how to see that potential even though there's so many things that might weigh on you, like, oh my gosh, he did that again, and it seems like he never gets it, but you still want to help them. Like that.
Well, it could be that you're misjudging. You want a particular result. It could be that you want a particular result. And the person doesn't have the actual potential to achieve the result according to your expectation. So you have to also consider what your expectation is, and does that person have the potential? That's part of what a leader does. And it doesn't mean maybe they can't ever get there, but some people have a greater potential for certain things than other people do. Otherwise, why is there more Russian government? You know, it's a practical thing, a practical point. And Prabhupada, he took some great risk in launching young and experienced fools and rascals. Because of his immense desire to serve his spiritual master and further the mission of Mahaprabhu, we somehow or other were pushed beyond our current capacities. And sometimes it just worked for that one instance, and some people kept going. Some people fell back, and we mentioned people going back. I know that was this morning, and after class, or after the morning program, reading that if you don't continue your chanting, you can fall back. So there's at play the actual potential, and is that potential actually being utilized in a proper manner? And is the person who's trying to achieve something as a leader through using that person, do they have the correct understanding of the ability of the person they're trying to accomplish something with? But Prabhupada had the ability to have us do things that we normally wouldn't do. We call that empowerment. Right? Empowered us. So that's a great art. But it's the greatest art of leadership.
Thank you very much.
Could I jump in on something, please? So this this past time, King Mayhem was replaced by the Brahmins. The Brahmins were wearing the Brahmin hats, and the Kshatriya were wearing the Kshatriya hats. It was a distinct job description, so to speak, duties. I guess I'm wondering, because you're all in college and maybe there's been classes and this has been explained, is the GBC supposed to be kind of like an administrative post? Or is it a permanent post? And if it's an administrative post, how would the Brahmins that are overseeing if somebody is unqualified or maybe in the wrong position for whatever reason? The structure that we have in this town, is there something like that that can address? We've had, of course, unqualified leaders in the past, even destructive leaders, maybe, that had to be replaced. Usually they're not replaced, they're just kind of like the time factor, but the Krishna factor here. So I'm wondering, is there some news that I'm not aware of, that things are organized in a way that there's some brahminical class that is overseeing this administrative branch? Or maybe it's a mixture, maybe the GBC is a position where you're wearing some brahminical hat and some Kshatriya hat, but we can see that doing administrative tasks tends to be influenced by the little passion, and that kind of clouds one's vision of brahminical. Anyway, these are some things that I'm thinking about. Maybe you all are taking the course now for a week or two, and maybe there's something that you could inform me about that would be nice to hear.
One thing I'd like, I'm not going to answer the question, but he said taking the course for a week or two. Actually, this is an 18-month course. This is just the launch pad.
Well, maybe there was an outline or something. I don't know. Jonathan,
Malati Prabhu, she's a member of GBC, so she's more qualified to speak about
If you read, then you can do a Google what Prabhupada said about the GBC, and you're going to find everything from Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra. And when people try to get out of certain things because they felt, well, that wasn't their, supposed to be a sannyasi, Prabhupada just didn't buy that. I mean, you really do the needful with intelligence.
in the emergency mode that we were operating in to establish the Krishna consciousness movement worldwide, that was kind of maybe the most operatic, just doing everything, whatever is needed, how to go, forget about, But now it seems that there's a movement towards maybe specializing or focusing on a particular varna that would be helpful for the development of the movement. So I don't know. I guess I haven't really answered that.
So there's the way I understand this is for medical management. It's through the eyes of being for medical. They have different, the GBC has different task forces or committees, the Shastra Advisory Council that helps advise them on topics that they're not sure of, where things stand in the Shastras with regards to it. So they have councils that are just some of the top Shastra devotees that are there to do a lot of research with regards to that. So I think as Malati mentioned, you're going to see a wide range of individuals that with different talents that run GBC. But it's definitely it's a governing body. So there's that aspect of governance that's there, setting policies. But it's also, there's a rabbinical component to it, because all the devotees that are on that shore are rabbinical in nature. And more so, the Brahminical in the sense that things are directed always towards the propagation of the Krishna consciousness movement. But I do know that there is, different committees that they delegate certain tasks to that are solely kind of Brahminical. Just like they may delegate certain tasks to, building the TOVP, and so they may have been more of a kind of a Vaishya activity. They may have had a council that kind of did research on that. So I think they delegate different responsibilities. That's my understanding. I wanted to maybe just end on this. I just wanted to refer back to Rajananda's question, just add one more thing to what Malati had offered, is that when people come to the Krishna consciousness movement, they may be under your care, even when we get frustrated, at the end of the day we have to reflect back and say, this is a soul that has turned to Krishna. And this may be my austerity, but I have to do everything in my power. And if I can't do it, I have to find something else. But we have to do everything we can, because this person has took that leap to go against Maya and turn to Krishna. And now this person is under my care. And they may give you a lot of problems. They may have a huge ego. They may want to boss you around. They may, breach etiquette. And there's ways of dealing with it. We could talk about, a lot of times it's individual, how you're going to deal with that particular individual. But we have to always remember, is the bottom line, when it comes, everything boils out, that this soul is now turned to Krishna. And if there's some sincerity there, we have to invest all our resources in trying to help bring them closer to Krishna.
200 gallons of blood.
200 gallons of blood that we have to shed for one individual. So, but I know it's difficult. We can talk more about maybe some individual struggles. Thank you very much. Vantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai.
Dronacharya Prabhu ki jai.